Plus, the Brian's Beat quote of the day. If you're spending less than $20 a month for prescription drugs, great. If not, then our monthly fee RX service might be a good option for you. Check for yourself at monthlyfeerx.com. And our quote of the day, our Brian's Beat quote of the day from Martha Stewart. If you learn something new every day, you can teach something new every day. Looks like Martha had to do some real digging for that one. If you learn something new every day, you can teach something new every day. That is, unless the person that you learned whatever from is the only other person around you. It'd be kind of difficult to teach it to the person who taught you. But be that as it may, Martha Stewart using a little old Yankee ingenuity. So, what say you? Taxpayer Appreciation Day. If there was one federal program, it's got to be a federal program that you would voluntarily pay for, what is it? And what's the one federal program that you would just absolutely ignore? You wouldn't pay for it at all. If you had the choice. 508-996-0500. I did mention earlier that Dartmouth has a beach that's shut down. It is Moses Smith Creek Beach. Now, I know Dartmouth pretty well. I live in Dartmouth, but I can't tell you where the Moses Smith Creek Beach is. I can tell you that the State Department of Public Health closed it because of bacterial exceedance. Doesn't that sound real proper? Bacterial exceedance. Moses Smith Creek. If you know which beach that is, let me know, please. Oh, and in Freetown, the Freetown Town Beach closed for the same reason, bacterial exceedance. There are some 50 beaches in the Commonwealth that are closed for some kind of contamination. Those are the only beaches in our backyard. There are a few beaches on the Cape that are closed down. Let me just double check. Maybe there's something in Plymouth, Taunton. Watson Pond is closed. Swansea, Leaside. Again, both of them for bacterial exceedance. Otherwise, I don't see anything really close. No idea when they're going to reopen. It depends on when the exceedance isn't exceeding anymore. All right, so that one's out there for you. Let's see. Taxpayer Appreciation Day. Okay. So which one would I not pay? It's actually a toss-up. I don't know about you, but I do consider Social Security a tax because basically I'm pretty much told if I am an employee that I have to pay into Social Security. So I'm tossed between that one and the offshoot of it, which would be Medicare. There are plenty of federal programs that I would not pay into, but I had to pick the, one. I mean, I could have gone down multiple roads, but Medicare is on the same tier, when I say it like that, as Social Security. It is because if you recall at one particular time, you had a deduction for Social Security along with your federal taxes and your state taxes. Well, I'm going to say it was about 15 years or so ago. The federal government decided to split it up. So Medicare would be its own little side tax off of Social Security. So to me, it's all the same. It's a program that I would not pay into. Can't speak for you, but I am asking if you had the choice, you could choose, which federal program would you gladly pay a tax for? And which one would you say absolutely no? All right, here's the other one. This is, my guess is somewhere down the road, this is going to really strike a chord with people, positive and negative. The Associated Press and the Nork Center for Public Affairs did a poll. They did the poll sometime between last week and the beginning of the week that is ending today. And here's what they found out. They wanted to find out how you feel about the Secret Service and their ability to keep presidential candidates and presidents safe. All of this coming up after the attempt on President Trump 3 weeks ago today, in fact. Here's what they found out. About 3 out of 10 of us are either extremely or very confident that the Secret Service can keep the presidential candidate safe from violence. That's not a good score. That's a failing grade. 3 out of 10 believe that that the Secret Service can do the job. That basically says about 7 out of 10, which would be barely a 70. 7 out of 10 of us believe that the Secret Service can't keep a president safe. What's your thought? I think the Secret Service can keep the presidential candidates, former presidents, safe. I think they can do the job. I really do. I wonder how much they want to do that with certain candidates. I know it's their job. But the more I look at that video from 3 weeks ago now, the more I have to say, there are just too many holes in this story. I'm not trying to be a conspiracy theorist. There are just too many holes in this story. They could have protected this guy a lot better. But they didn't. And they know what their job is. They know how to work under pressure. They practice this stuff all the time. And I know that they can do the job because most of the time they do. I've stated this before. I know it's early to be talking about something like this, but it bears repeating. If I'm Donald Trump, and I certainly am glad that I am not, but I'm wondering about the Secret Service, about how well they can protect me. Not that Donald Trump is listening to each and every report that has come out. He's not paying attention to all the congressional hearings. But you know what? He's got sons. He's got his own private security. They're listening. They're reporting. I'd be just a tad concerned if I'm him. The Associated Press also wanted some more information. They wanted to know who you blame for the attack on the president. Here are your choices. They gave you a whole bunch of choices. Political division. here in this country. The availability of guns, the media, the Secret Service, the way the Republicans talk about politics, the way the Democrats talk about politics, local law enforcement in Pennsylvania. So you've got a lot of choices. And people did respond. I'm curious as to what you think. Who do I blame? If we have to toss blame around, I blame the person who made the attempt. I don't know what that person was feeding in his head, but that's who I blame. In the United States, we are allowed to have political discourse. And I admit it gets to a feverish pitch, but still, you're going to climb up on a roof and try to pop off a president? I mean, that's borderline sicko right there. Am I going to blame the Republicans? Yeah, their conversation hasn't been the best. But I would have to say the same thing about the Democrats. Blame local law enforcement? What did they do wrong? The Secret Service? Now, whoop, 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 whoop. How about the presidential candidates themselves? But number one person to blame is the person carrying the gun trying to take the shot. Welcome back, Jim Phillips over in Studio 6 and 7/8. He has our Town Square Sunday preview for tomorrow.
Good morning, Brian. Good morning, everyone. Here's what's happening this week on Town Square Sunday. The Greater New Bedford Community Health Center is hosting the We Care Community Health Fair on August 10th. Health Center CEO Cheryl Bartlett tells us why you should stop by and some of the swag you can take home. Jack Spillane of the online news publication New Bedford Light shares some thoughts about the passing of former Bristol County DA Paul Walsh. And Joe Ritter from the New Bedford Fishing Heritage Center stops by with details on programs in August and September, including the Seafood Soiree on September 17th at Cisco Brewers in the South End. I'm Jim Phillips. Join me for Town Square Sunday, Sunday morning at 6 and 11 on 1420 WBSM and 99.5 FM.
So who do you blame for the assassination attempt on President Trump? The Associated Press asked a lot of people that particular question. And they phrased it in, so they could get 100% answers. I'm going to look for the most likely. That category, as opposed to trying to break it down 4 different ways as to most, kind of, a little bit, not at all. According to the survey, and more than 1,100 people were questioned by the Associated Press and the NORC Research Group. This is what they found out. 50% of the people surveyed blame the political division in this country for the reason the president or the former president was shot at. Do you agree with that? Do you think it was political division? Next, the Secret Service at 43%. Responsible. Next on the list, the availability of guns. Always seems to go back, well, if guns weren't available, this wouldn't have happened. So I don't know this kid at all. And Not going to really get a chance to know him. But my guess is, even if guns were taken away from us, if this kid really wanted to go out and shoot, it doesn't have to be the president, but anybody, don't you think that he would steal a gun and then turn around and try to do his dirty deed? But, and by the way, just to let you know, the Democrats were more than likely than the Republicans to believe that guns are to blame in this particular case. But clearly, 38% of respondents said the availability of guns. 30% said the way the Republicans talk about politics. 30% want to just blame the Republicans for somebody taking a pot shot, 8 shots at former President Trump. Really? You're going to blame the Republicans for that? Their guy. Okay. Look. Let's see. 23% say the way Democrats talk about politics. 19%. And this is a rather high number when you think about it. 19% want to blame the local law enforcement in Pennsylvania for somebody attempting to assassinate the former president and man who was, at that particular time, the front runner to win back the White House. You've got to be kidding me. What did the Pennsylvania police do wrong? Can anybody answer that for me? They have come out and stated there's been a lack of communication. It's not like they didn't try, or again, only from what I'm hearing, it's not like they didn't try to communicate. I think the blame has to go squarely where it belongs. Thomas Crooks, the person with the gun, the person who climbed up on a roof, the person who squeezed off 8 shots before losing his own life. The Secret Service? Yeah, I mean, certainly there's plenty of blame to go around, and we could certainly say the Secret Service is to blame. Why didn't they cover up the president better? Why didn't they have this position staked out better? You know, we can go through all of that. We really could. But the question is, who is to blame the most? How do you, in fact, the Associated Press doesn't even list Thomas Crooks as a person that you could blame the most for what happened. How is that? How do you leave the gunman off the list? Maybe it's just me, but he did fire shots. He did have the gun to fire. He used an AR, and you're not listing him. You list Pennsylvania police before. You worry. I mean, again, I'm pointing the finger at the Associated Press and this NORC research group. Political divisions, I can see throwing that in there. I can see, I guess, throwing in the media and the availability of guns, the Secret Service. But really? Now, when you get down to the local law enforcement, when you get down to blaming how the Republicans and Democrats are talking, this is a political season. This is how they talk. And as much as we want to point the finger at the Secret Service, you and I do not know how many attempts on a president, former or present, are out there that we never hear about because the Secret Service does and did their job. You blame the gunman. He's the one. He's the one. All right, it's time now for the Bitcoin Biz Barometer, where we measure the universal crypto marketplace. Let us see. Speaking of a bloody day, it was a bad day on Wall Street. And in the crypto world, including Bitcoin, also a bad day. I'm looking, Toncoin. Toncoin was the only one remotely even at $6. Bitcoin down $6,351 from last week at this time, coming in at $61,680. Ethereum, $2,981. That's down $282. Binance Coin coming in at 543, down 42. Solana, $152. That's down $32. These are all different cryptos or Bitcoin that have been up over the past 3 or 4 weeks. They just slid down a pole. XRP down 2 cents, coming in at 57 cents this morning. Dogecoin at 11 cents, also down 2. And as I mentioned before, Toncoin, even at $6. That's your Bitcoin Biz Barometer for today, August 3rd, 2024. As always, I get my numbers from CoinMarketCap.com. CoinMarketCap.com. Only 3 out of 10 of us, or at least those of us that were surveyed, are extremely or very confident that the Secret Service can keep presidential candidates safe from violence before the election. So in other words, if a lot of people are Donald Trump fans, what would you tell the Donald? Would you tell him hire more personal security? Would you tell him sit down and scold the Secret Service? What would you do? You want to vote for him in November. What would you do in this particular case? 508-996-0500. How would you, I think what I would do, I'd say, Mr. President, you got some serious thinking to do here. Now, I'm not trying to say don't run for president, but you've got to wonder if your food taster is working today. 508-996-0500. Thank you for your patience. Hello.
Oh, yeah. Hey, morning. Yeah, I was interested in, you were talking about the cryptocurrencies there. Are you familiar with the old problem of currency speculators?
I'm not all familiar with it. I know about it.
Well, World War I was when the world became aware of the problem. That there were people who were able to use, back then we didn't have radio or TV. They had pretty much only the newspaper and word of mouth.
And the wire.
And yeah,
Morse
there was
code.
the wire, yeah. And telegraph, whatnot. But the idea that people were able to praise and praise and praise a country for a while until the exchange rate of their currency got high, and then they would curse it and curse it and curse it in order to bounce the currency. And so it basically forced people that lived in the real world, like farmers or, fishermen or mining, different industries that had commodities. The value of the commodities would have to be diminished by 10, 20, 30% simply by all of this slander. And it's, in the modern world.
So you bring the price down to make it more palatable for people to buy.
Well, we're talking about the value of a currency, the value of a whole nation as opposed to the value of, copper or corn.
Do you think people back in excuse me, I'm sure that the speculators, they understood that, but did the general population understand any of that?
Well, that's why I'm saying World War I was when it finally got exposed to the general public. Because, there was, when you think about World War I, there's this archduke that gets murdered or assassinated. And if you know the history of that archduke, he was a rat. He was a cheat. He was a gambler. He would travel around Europe, like to casinos and famous hotels and whatnot. He would stay there for weeks or months or whatever, and he would never pay his bills. And because he had diplomatic status, how could they collect from a con artist? The guy would go to the casino.
Why does this sound so familiar?
Oh, yeah. And so the idea that this con artist finally gets murdered, and there was no reason to have a world war based upon the death of a con artist. And but it still did happen, and it was basically because of the currency speculators who kind of played games. When I say they praised, you've heard of the expression pump and dump in the stock market. Yeah, so, somebody will praise the stock, and then they'll get it up so high everybody wants to buy some, and then all of a sudden they tell the truth about it, and the price falls to a nickel, and everybody loses money except for the
people that or the people that are going to buy in because it went down to a nickel.
Yeah, well, the idea of pump and dump, it's a propaganda technique to praise a stock, but in this case, we're talking about currencies. Well, now, if you look at the idea of World War I again, they started praising France or praising Luxembourg or Belgium.
So, okay, but can we get this to the crypto?
Yeah, well, crypto is somewhat the same thing. There's no specific backing to it other than a kind of an internet, I'm trying to think of some chimera as one word, a shiny toy, but you don't know if it's actually got any kind of value to it. And so there are people who are putting everything. I have a friend that was into Bitcoin, and he had all of these computers running day and night, spending electricity just to be able to create.
He was mining.
Yeah, and it was like the power company loved it, but when you look at the value of Bitcoin now and later, was it worth it? And
well,
the idea,
the question would be, when did he start? If he started when Bitcoin was $12 or $1,200 or even $12,000, then it was worth it, depending on how much you got.
Oh, I know. And as a matter of fact, I was doing some work for a guy about 10 years ago, and he was trying to pay me in Bitcoin, and it was about, $1,100 or something like that. So, yeah, maybe I was a fool for not grabbing it because it got up to 25,000, but or upwards of that, if I remember right. But the idea that, for example, the Saudi Arabians right now don't want to use the U.S. dollar anymore when they sell oil.
A lot of countries don't. I could keep this going, but your point is quickly.
Well, it's pump and dump of values of whole nations. And after World War II...
Oh, okay. No, I don't want to go all the way back to World War II. You just think it's a big value swap right now?
Well, it's a con because
What's the con? What's the con?
Well, the International Monetary Fund put the United States dollar...
You know what? Crypto. The whole thing about crypto is to get away from the IMF and organizations like that. I do appreciate the call. If you don't want to do that stuff, fine. I don't do anything outside of Bitcoin, but quite frankly... Who gives a rat's you-know-what about what the IMF has to say about it? And if you do, all the power to you, or maybe all the negative to you. 508-996-0500 to get onto the program today. Bitcoin, just in case you missed it, Bitcoin down $6,300+ from last week at this time. Just about everything but Toncoin down. But at the same time, I can tell you that the stock market, in fact, the stock market was impacted more yesterday than the crypto market. All right, 508-996-0500 to get onto the program. Next hour, Dr. Mark Fuller. He is the chancellor at UMass Dartmouth. We're going to be talking to him about the upcoming school year and enrollment, because there could be some big changes over at UMass Dartmouth because community college is now free. Well, free for the students. Yes, we're home. Thank you so much, SouthCoast Towing, for allowing us to have the WBSM app and downloading it for free. 77 degrees in Taunton, 75 in Tiverton, 77 in New Bedford. And let's go back to the phone calls. Hello.
Hey, Brian.
Hey, Brian.
Hey, how are you?
I'm winging.
Would you, speaking of Bitcoin, that was interesting to see actually Trump embracing it. He wanted to make...
He was at a conference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was at a conference, and he was saying to make it, crypto capital of the planet. I was very surprised with that.
I am too.
Because a few years back, he didn't embrace it. But now, he's got $8 million portfolio stock in Bitcoin as of last June. So
surprise.
He is investing in it. So that was interesting. What did you think about that?
So since you asked, if you notice some of the people that have been contributing to his campaign, there are some crypto investors, Bitcoin holders. And so I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised that and I just found this out because earlier in the week I was mentioning that Kamala Harris is now starting to embrace it where Joe Biden was not. And I said, well, that's one thing that separates her from Donald Trump. But wouldn't you know it, Trump is there at the convention. I think it was in Nashville, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was in Nashville.
Yeah.
He was saying some really good things about it. And I was like, this is very interesting, because he did say at one time it was a scam, I guess. That's
well, you know what? Words. I think a lot of people thought that at the beginning, because if you don't know and it's confusing and you can't see that it's backed by anything, then you're liable to think it's a big scam.
Right. Obviously, some people.
So the Chinese are coming up with a way to make Bitcoin backed by gold.
Yeah, because everybody is investing in gold.
Well, they're investing, and the Chinese are heavily investing in gold.
Oh, very.
Oh, yeah.
And metals. They have an island designated just for metals.
That thing is going to sink. They keep on putting it over there.
Yeah. Big time. Yeah. That's why Ukraine is so crucial. A lot of precious metals in there. Russia wants that so bad. There's just a lot of mining, a lot going on with those type of metals, gold, whatever.
So why do you think the Russians want it any more than the United States?
Yeah, for us to get it, for us, we don't have the military for us to want it. Not. Maybe that's why we're supplying weapons. It's the price of doing war. Will eventually maybe. It depends who will eventually get all that. Not all that, but you're right. It could be. This is why we're supplying.
Well, I'm saying that because you were saying Russia wants it. They are a next door neighbor to Ukraine. The United States is pumping in a lot of weapons and trying to get Ukraine into NATO. I guess I can look at it from both sides of the street. I'm of the opinion that unless Russia really does something different than what they have stated, that they're not going to go any further than where they've gone in Ukraine unless they are provoked to do so.
Yeah, I think they will.
Well, they might. I mean, I think intelligent people can have that conversation.
Yeah,
but
I'm
not seeing it.
Yeah, Denmark just sent them F-15s to Ukraine, so Denmark and another country just sent some F-15s to Ukraine. So we'll see what happens, how that gets retaliated by the Russians on that aspect.
Well, I guess if the F-15s do something, as far as, it's one thing to send them in. It's another thing when you start firing.
Well, I think the Ukrainians, they're already firing missiles and drones into Mother Russia and actually getting targets, actually going in there, into the land.
Are they getting better targets than the Russians are getting in Ukraine?
Well, the Russians are really sending a lot of they have a stockpile of what they call dumb bombs. It's really not precision.